Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben.
And I'm Chris.
And thank you for joining us. We have another special guest. He keeps popping up like wildfire, like the bushfires of northern New South Wales last year. Swizz, how are you?
I'm good, boys. I don't know if I'm classified as a special guest anymore because I seem to just stay around all the time now.
It's
but
actually more like a bad
might have to be a part-time person, but...
You're part of the furniture, but do not ask us for superannuation or anything like that, Swizz. We're not at that level yet, mate.
Do you know what time it is? It's my favourite time of the year. Do you know why?
Yes, it's our intro where we talk about our socials. SC Insider 100. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and all our audio platforms as well, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, all those other things. The YouTube, also search for a Supercoach Insider. And that was a lovely little way to interrupt us. You are not starting this talking about Josh fucking Kelly.
No, I was not going to start.
Bullshit.
Thank you for bringing him up.
Bullshit. You've been talking it up.
I was just saying it's not wedding season, but it's the next best thing to wedding season.
Upgrade season.
It's upgrade season.
It's upgrade season. Okay. Wow, so I just shot myself in the foot.
You did. Yeah, you did. Thank you very much for that. No, it was good. I'm glad that you brought it up. And we are on the old Mountain Goats, the Hazy Pale Ale this evening.
Yes, we are.
Not a bad little brew, if you don't mind saying myself.
Now, Mountain Goat, we quite like the very enjoyable beer from Mountain Goat, and I like hazies. Now, Mountain Goat have a hazy pale ale. I did not realise it's only $54 for a carton, so happy days. You know we like a bargain.
We do. Are you on the beers tonight as well, Swizzy? Or
unfortunately, because of my job, I try not to drink unless I've got a couple of days off. So I'll leave that to Friday night celebration for the footy. But I should crack one open for you guys because happy birthday to both of you.
Hey!
Thank you very much,
man.
Swizz. Very nicely done there, Mike. So yes, we did have a eventful week. Well, I had an eventful weekend. Not having kids helps me out in that way.
Hey, not having Josh Kelly also helps me out.
Usually you pay double for that kind of action. Yes. So no, I had a nice little Saturday afternoon at a brewery in Brisbane called Range Brewing. Arguably the best brewery in Brisbane, if you don't mind me saying.
How is their range?
The range is fantastic. So many IPAs. It's all of the IPAs. And then we went to a nice little house party. Then we went out to a place called Fridays, and then Prohibition. It was fantastic.
Well, either way, there'd be more IPAs than there is IPL for the cricket lovers out there. It's been shut down.
Oh, I did not know that. Unlucky.
Shut down like Bontempelli this week.
Well, for those cricket lovers, we're still going down here. We actually play winter cricket down here in Victoria, so you can make what you want of that. But I'm sure we might have a few more jumped on now that the IPL's gone to shit.
So,
but
just on that, mate, do you actually have you got enough time to set up a little brazier, get a fire going because you're just sitting out there all day in the freezing cold? Is that pretty much how it works?
We had 22 degrees and sun on the weekend, and that we thought we were Queensland for a moment.
Oh, he's not a Melbourne supporter, Chris. He doesn't just rock up with a 3-course cheese platter.
He's got a cheese platter on the side with his brazier.
Yeah, he's like
and his marshmallows as well.
Yeah, boys, I'm second drops. I'm just gonna slather myself a bit of meat over here, and well, that sounded a bit sus. Maybe phrasing for the Archer lovers out there. Phrasing. Do you want ants?
All right.
Let's go into the structure for today. Long enough. You've been waiting long enough. It's a big week. People want to know, should they bring in Stephen May? Should they get rid of Tex Walker? All these questions, who to go to. That is what we're looking at today. And so let's look at our structure. We're looking at strategies. So we're going to talk about buy strategies, what we're doing, what you should look at, what sort of positions you need, and making sure you have yourself well set up going into the buys. The next one is we're going to be looking at the Fulham Premium, the cash cows, also known as the Highmore Special.
Yes.
Honourable mentions to Highmore each and every week that is not named and costing us cash. Then we'll go into your Fulham Premiums and your Ubers and things. So people who we should looking at right now, there's not many, and those who we should have our eyes on in the future, which is quite plentiful. So that is basically our structure for today. And then captains, as always, Swizz reminds us of.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, if it wasn't for Swizz, we would just avoid it at all costs.
Swizz brings us structure, and he brings us a nice level head with some really good critiquing. So, okay, let's talk about buy structures and strategies at the moment. Swizz, where do you stand on, is there a right amount of premiums to have going into buys, and are there some rookies you want to kind of hold to carry through a bit more?
It's not for me about the amount of premiums that I could have, because players like Walker and CJ and even Impey and Zeeble, it's hard to tell if they actually will be premiums or not. We're gathering they will be. So if we count them, you could be looking at sort of having sort of that 17, 18 mark leading in. I guess it comes down to what you dub as a premium. But I think it's about not having too many in each line. We know the round 14 situation with Gawn and Grundy were already out too, and depending on how many rookies you're going to have available, it's going to make that more difficult to get through that round, depending on how many you have in other rounds and how many trades you're willing to use for rounds 12 and 13.
Impey has to be a keeper because I got rid of Josh Kelly, so you can't be doing that.
When a forward line guy that was like 200k is out averaging your superstar premium who just moved back to the wing, anything can happen,
And take what we say with a grain of salt, because I'm probably going to recommend that I'm bringing in Tom Mitchell soon for the same price as Josh Kelly. So look, make of it as you will. I do agree. I think. Yeah, you want to kind of make sure your premiums are fairly well mixed out. I brought in Steele last week for that reason, because even though I have quite a few on that last buy in other areas, I don't have many in that midfield mix for that last buy. So I think it's about balance. Try not to have too many from the same buy round, because when you have a look, you have all the Dogs, you have the Lions. So there's so many people, particularly in the midfield in that second buy round. Walsh, Cripps, for those who are unfortunate enough to still be stuck with him. So just try and look at the lines that you have and make sure you have a pretty good balance, I think.
I think.
Yeah, you go, mate.
Sorry, Chris. I was going to go through that. I was just going to say, because you're only playing that best 22, the best 18 that week, I think a few people get cut up, look at it and go, okay, I've got 18 players, no problems. But if you've got 6 defenders all missing in the same week, for example, well, that's going to be useless for you because you're not going to be able to bring any rookies on. So definitely have a look at your line breakdown, not just how many players you might have available that week.
Yeah, and it also comes into play then, okay, so what rookies do you have to try and replace them? So if you've got Sharp and Highmore in your defence like I do, well, it doesn't matter. You're copping zeros regardless of what happens there. Mm-hmm. So, look, I think that you sort of also got to, whilst you've got to earn sort of caution, you kind of got to plan around having guys like Impey and Zeeble as keepers and guys that are going to carry you through. Now, unfortunately, they actually have the first buy, but that will actually suit because...
I don't think that's a bad thing at all, having some in that first buy.
Yeah, well, because they're going to be able to carry you through for the rest of the buy rounds, which is good. I think more what we're looking at now is, okay, your team is the way it is. Let's just throw everything out at the moment and work on who you're bringing into your teams to complement what your current buy structure is. So very important to have a look, count up the amount that you have coming into your team and what you have currently. With rookies, it's a little bit harder to tell because some of those rookies may not be in your team by the bye rounds, but you may want to hold on to some guys such as Warner, such as Golden, who have the later buys to try and trade them out at that point, which would be an ideal scenario. So keeping someone like a Warner or a Golden, as long as they're playing, what tends to happen sometimes, unfortunately, is that we get to those buys. We've held these guys for a little bit too long, and then they don't get named over the buy rounds, and then we just get screwed. Look, that is what it is. You can't really control that, but it's very important to try and take that into consideration. So I think at this point now, when you're looking at trying to pick guys to come into your side, try and get guys to try and balance your teams, or to go to the back end of your buys if you can. So I wouldn't say not to trade in guys with the round 1 with the round 12 buy, but I would say if you've got the chance to trade in a round 14 versus a round 12 and you're light on in round 14, I would definitely be trading for round 14.
Yeah, because ideally coming into that first buy, you should be trying to free up some cash anyway and making moves after targeting people after the first buy. For me as well, also on strategy, try and maximize cash. It is, as Chris said, upgrade season. You want to try and free up cash to make upgrades. Now, there is no real point unless your rookie situation is so dire, you shouldn't be sideways trading a rookie at this point. That's why you had early on options to try and sideways trade 2 rookies. Unless you have 0 cash and you have 0 options, that's the only way, or to avoid a donut. Otherwise, you want to be downgrading someone who has money, so you can then use that money to better your team on field. If you just sideways a rookie, you're not making cash. you still have to wait for them to play 4 or 5 rounds to make you cash, and it's just a bad cycle.
Yeah, and I think that there's... Yeah, you go, Swizz.
So I was going to say, to give people out there to get some sort of benchmark of premiums and rookies, well, how many premiums and how much cash are you guys sort of carrying at the moment? And while you're trying to work that out,
I already know off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah, you're already on. So, Chris, where are you at?
So it depends on what you classify as a premium, but if you classified Taranto as a premium, I'm running 17 premiums at the moment with no cash. I have 13K in the bank. And so for me this week, this is where I suppose there comes the next strategy is, okay, am I maximizing cash or am I trying to go one down, one up? Now, unfortunately, one down, one up's not really going to work unless I wanted to clear my bank or get out someone like a Powell and a Golden, which I really don't want to do. So I'm probably going to be double downgrading this week to try and build my bank so that I can get that upgrade cadence happening. But because I've already got 17, I'm probably one premium ahead of most people, at least, I think.
Yeah, I'm on 16, 30K. So, yeah, I'm one less than Chris, but I've also got those rookies that I held with the extra rookie that I have. I'm making more bank.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll catch.
This is obviously me considering that Zeeble and Impey are keepers. And I think you're saying as well Tex at the moment.
Yes. Well, he is a premium based on his numbers.
Well, right now he is.
Yes.
Let's see how he goes this week, and then you might have a different conversation next week. What about you, Swizz?
Yeah, I'm 16 if you include Taranto, but I've got 467K in the bank.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, cool. So, yeah, you would be served doing one down, one up this week. Because
and probably next week you could do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, in an ideal scenario, from now until the end of upgrade season, which is the buys, you would literally be doing one down, one up to try and complete your team.
Or double down, one up. Yeah, depending if you need cash.
Yeah, well, that's sort of mine's probably the one down, one up this week to go the double up next week to get me to that 19 premium mark and head towards those buys with 19 premiums.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is also another consideration in that we are being currently somewhat blessed, hashtag blessed, I might even say, with a plethora.
Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed. Plethora of rookies, not only on the bubble this week, but also on the bubble next week. I count, there's 5 guys on the bubble this week, and there is 7 guys that could potentially be on the bubble next week. So it is definitely a time to grab cash when you can. It may mean that if you're in a position like me where you've got 0 cash, it might be a better scenario this week to double down so that you can start your upgrade cadence next week. Or if you're in a position like Swizz where you've got cash in bank, you'd probably be better served waiting a week and going one down, one up this week, and then potentially even double up depending on your individual situation and what you want to bring in. I think, guys, this is probably a good time to go into the rookies, but is there any rookies that you'd say are absolutely must-have based on their performance so far?
We'll go with you, Swizz.
Well, I was at the game last week and I watched RCD finally make his debut. I was rapt to see how he played at that. He got some midfield time. They put him up against a couple of good players and that. So obviously that Bulldogs midfield is on drugs when you compare them to other mids with Bolton, Chalor and Libber and that, and he held his own, liked the tackle, which is fantastic. So
his tackling was very impressive. I have to say right off the bat, his work inside and his tackling was absolutely elite, which is one of the reasons why I'm hot in him. But yeah, keep going, Swizz.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things I'm big on, as you said, the tackling and just his size. They held off a couple of years before playing him, so he was ready to go. And with all the injuries that Richmond have got at the moment, Cochin's just gone down for another 3-4 week hammy, which sometimes linger on with his history. Prestia, Lambert. There's no guarantees Dusty will be back this week. I think he should be, but just with the extra injuries, I think he's got some good job security at the moment, even over a couple of other guys, senior guys like Ross, who are playing in horrible form. So he's one that I'm confident of going early on because, it just looks more ready-made than other rookies that we've had recently.
I completely agree with everything you just said. I also like the observation of Jack Ross. I don't get me wrong, he has played decent football in his time at Richmond, but he's a VFL player. I don't think he's anywhere near their top 22.
He needs to get more angry. He needs to become Red Ross.
I was really disappointed with his performance over the last couple of weeks, and specifically this week. And I would say that based on, it's a one-game sample size, and it's very short. I reckon he's above Jack Ross moving forward. So, to me, I think he's got a guaranteed 2 to 3 weeks, potentially more, potentially 4 weeks.
Chris, that just reminded me of like Fun with Dick and Jane. You're like, specific. So how are your statistics?
Yes, indeed.
I would say at least 3 weeks because Presti is 3, Lambert's 3, and Cochin's 4. So with 3 of our main midfielders out for at least 3 weeks, and that I think unless he's completely shits the bed, I think he's got a role there for that time period.
You know what this actually reminds me of? It reminds me of what happened with Sydney Stack when he debuted, and I didn't get on. And I feel like the other thing that Hardwood likes doing is he likes to give them a run. Like if they're performing, he's not just going to drop them for no reason, right? Now, he's obviously in the team because of injury, and they've been hit a little bit through that midfield, and he's getting that roll through. But do you think that there's the opportunity that even when those midfielders come back, they just find another role for him?
Absolutely, and we've got history in the Flags with one. Townsend came in that year in 2017 when we were sort of restructuring our forward line, and then ended up become a premiership player. Stack, Higgins spent many weeks in the side, and Dimmer's happy to back in the young fella. Well, look at Marlon Pickett, and that comes in here, and even though he had that injury, he came in late and ends up being a premiership player. So Dimmer's happy to back in the young fellas especially if some of those guys who are in and out of the VFL aren't performing.
If only the coaches could get together, and if Dimmer could talk to a certain St Kilda coach, would be nice. Talking about backing in young players. Okay, so Riley, Collier, Dawkins, RCD, break even of already negative 25. Someone you could definitely play on field based on his first week. Predicted to go up 117,000 over his first 2 weeks. Obviously not this week. You can hold off a week. But again, if you want to free up that cash and you don't have the money to upgrade, possibly go early on that and do a double downgrade to free up some cash and make some moves next week.
All right, guys. So of the 5, there's 5 rookies on the bubble. I'll just quickly go through them now. We've got Frederick, obviously, is arguably the big one, negative 88 break even. We've got Murray as well. He's a 102k defender. He's got a break even of negative 39. We've got Nathan Murphy. He's a 123k defender. So all these defenders coming out of the mix. He's around there somewhere. Where is Nathan Murphy?
He's looking for Eddie wherever he's gone. Eddie,
there he is.
Eddie, I want to talk to you.
Break even negative 28, 123k. You've obviously got Thilthorpe there as well. He's got a break even of negative 25, I believe, at 202k. And then you've also got Mark Keane, who's still around there. He's about 158k at a defender as well, with a break even of negative 13. So 4 defenders and a forward ruck. Obviously,
it's a simple decision.
Help us.
Yeah, it's a simple decision. Chapman's out most likely for this week, so Frederick is in. Again, I was at the game at the Gabba, so Frederick I thought was quite impressive. Extremely good speed on him as well, and he actually chased Charlie Cameron on one and kept matching him with speed, so Charlie Cameron had to run boundary side and still kick the goal because it's Charlie Cameron. But
classic.
Frederick was definitely good, and even off the play, he makes some good decisions, try to position himself well. He's very fit, and he's lightning quick as well. Now, the issue is some people think, job security is not great. Jones probably back in 2 to 3, and that's from his injury. So let's just, take a note. They like to try and play some players, Rockcliffe and all these other guys playing through the sample, give them a game or two, just load them up instead of throwing them straight in back into AFL footy. I think they have their eye on the bigger prize of finals this year, so I can see them even playing him for a round or so, half a game or 3 quarters or whatever in the sample, and then bring him in. And Frederick's going to make you 125k over 2 weeks predicted, so I don't see the negative. Even if he plays 2 weeks, 125k, move on. I don't see a bad situation here.
I mean, look, the sooner I can get him to Whitfield, the better, right? Is that pretty much where we're at?
Yeah, pretty much. Or Cozzy, I can,
Yeah. Well, look, the other consideration is there's also Bergman in that team. There's also, look, who's in front? Bergman actually had a very good week this week. So I wouldn't say that last week I made the comment that I thought Frederick had gone past him. And based on last week's game, that was true. And then they came out this week and he actually played a lot better. So it's probably a coin toss at the moment as to who's...
Burton also got injured again.
Yep,
Ryan Burton's down again. I don't know how long for, but again, his body is made of paper mache.
That's true.
Well, in regards to both of them, like I went Frederick last week after everyone's advice was told me to go get Ridley, and I'm happy that I lost 13 points, but say that's how I've got all that money that I was going to use to go up to that premium. But in regards to Port's draw, they've got the bye in 4 weeks. So if you're thinking Burton and Jones are both listed 3 to 4 weeks, I believe, and their buys in round 12. So even if those boys they might have the Sandford game that week that they can have a run, you think Frederick's going to be good enough to take you through rounds 8, 9, 10 and 11.
Not only that, Adelaide, Western Bulldogs, Collingwood, Fremantle, the next 4. So 3 out of those 4 I think are quite decent for them.
And he plays those 4 games, he's going to make you at least 150K during that period. And then depending on his form, they might look at bringing back Jones and then obviously Burton. But at least I think you can be confident you're going to get a month out of him.
Yeah, and that's all you need. Because, I mean, let's say that we anticipate that Lachie Jones is the guy that we want there as D7.
Liam Jones. What an insult to Lachie.
Yeah, right. Which I actually honestly believe, like if I was to say right now, okay, I want a defender that I think is going to play every week as long as he's not injured as a rookie, I'd probably say Lachie Jones is that one, right? So let's say he comes in the round after the bye. That's perfect. That's a great downgrade for Frederick because then you go straight to Jones and then hopefully Lachie could potentially play out the rest of the season. Now, I'm not saying that that's guaranteed to happen. I just think that he's got the body and the ability to be able to make that and the pedigree. So
you're talking about the pedigree is in his hair?
Yes, that's exactly. But you're going to want to bring in, at that point, you're going to want to bring in rookies that you think are going to have really, really good job security. Not necessarily that are going to be, the best instant money makers, the best that are going to have long-term job security so that you're not caught with donuts on your pine for when you do need someone.
For when Luke Ryan decides to get calf tightness again.
Exactly right. Exactly.
What the hell? How can you be a test on a Saturday morning, be ruled out for Sunday, and then still be ruled out the following week with calf stiffness?
This is legit a thing. We found out 2 minutes before recording the pod.
Is he Daniel Hanbury?
He just gives me the finger straight up. It's fucking hilarious.
What the fuck?
So are we all getting? Oh, you already have Frederick, Swizz?
Yeah, I do.
Yep. So and I'm definitely going this week.
I'm going this week.
I think you'll arguably be the most traded.
Would you go Highmore to Frederick like some other social influencers?
No.
I would never do that in a heart. There's no benefit to that, especially like, okay, so Highmore, here's what we know. Highmore is performing in the VFL. So he's had 2 weeks in a row of absolute stellar performances. This week, he had a best on ground performance. I think he had 30 touches and like 12 marks, 8 intercept marks or something stupid. Like it was a lot. Ridiculous, right?
I'm just hoping Highmore plays 2 games, gets me 100,000 so I can F him off.
Right.
That's my hope. That's my dream.
That's really all you need though.
Yeah, two games, 100K.
The better option there for Frederick, so if you don't have Chapman and you don't have Chapman down to Frederick, but you've got one of those midfield rookies that you want to get rid of, or even Rowe in the forward line, that use Laird to swing into the midfield for now and bring Frederick through that way and get rid of one of the other rookies that are not performing, but have made you at least 100K.
Yep. Absolutely.
I was thinking the exact same.
A Berry or similar, or even probably not a McNeil if you can avoid it. I think
a lot of people have Laird, and I think that is another great option. If you are someone who went early on Jones and you don't want to kind of trade him because you brought him in early, then you put him on the pine, get Laird into that midfield, play Frederick for a few weeks, wait for him to make his money, reverse the switch back later on, and happy days.
Am I right in saying that we're completely comfortable at the moment with Frederick's on-field scoring ability?
Yep, on-field.
Yeah.
And so he's arguably better than all of the forward rookies and probably most of the midfield rookies, right? Outside of Powell.
Yep, he's on field for me, except for he's on field over Cozzy, except that Cozzy's playing for Luke Ryan this week again.
You're such
I'm so dirty.
I just love it. You go.
I could have.
Why do you go these left field injured selections every single year, then they fuck you over again, and you're like, you know what? I'm going Luke Ryan again this year, boys.
I had Callum Mills there, but he got knocked out, and I had this stupid rule like don't bring in knocked out players, so I bring in an injured. Anyway.
Oh my god.
And as Ben said, have a look at their fixture coming up, and that was especially the Crows, Collingwood and Freo. I'm very confident Frederick should score pretty well there. You only had to look at some of the points, especially the Pies at the moment are giving up. So I'm not worried about Frederick having a couple poor games like some of the other rookies are having.
All right, last comment on Frederick.
You better lock it up. No, lock it up.
Lock it up.
All right, moving on to that. So then we've got 3 other defender rookies on the bubble this week. Do we put anything into any of them? So we got Murray at 102k. We got
Stuff
Murphy
123k.
Murphy
maybe Murphy the only one. Otherwise, I think apart from Frederick, you're not double downgrading a defender. Surely, maybe. Murphy, you could talk about, I guess.
Structure-wise, again, a lot of guys have a lot of premiums. They don't really have many defenders that they're trying to go down to. So they might not have the opportunity to get in 2 defenders. I definitely don't. However, I'm sure there's people out there that possibly have, say, a Cozzy and a Chapman, and they may want to go double down.
Right.
So
Murphy over Murray, though, surely.
I don't mind Murray that much. It's hard to say, like, with the Pies, like I'm just a little gun-shy because I think at some point that Bucks is going to crack it and start dropping some of these rookies, but at the same time he needs to play them. But
who's he going to drop them for? The other rookies?
Yeah, I know that's the problem. Well, he continues to want to play, but Josh Thomas and
whatnot. We're not playing the kids, lads. All right, I don't know if you heard.
Next minute 6.
We're not playing the kids.
Next minute 6 debuts. Nicholas Murray. Look, I'm sure Murray is a nice guy. I'm sure Murray is a darling.
He's definitely a darling.
Murray darling.
I get that. We got it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Good one. Look, I actually don't mind Murray, but if it was me, I'd be choosing Murphy. The only reason why his scoring has been so low, he actually has proven the ability to get the pill. And he's arguably one of our better players at doing that. He just seems to turn the ball over by foot way too much. And that's unfortunate when you're a defender.
And he gave away a couple frees too, didn't he, against?
Yeah, but I don't hate him. It's the 20k difference that actually matters to me. Like, that's the only reason why I would be going Murray over Murphy. So if that 20k can actually help your team, then that may be worth it. That's literally the only thing that I like to decide between the two.
Yeah, right.
Outside of that, I wouldn't be choosing Keane. First of all, I don't think he's any good.
You're not very keen on Keane?
I'm very unkeen. The one that I actually like is Thilthorpe. Now, I was big on him last week. The unfortunate thing is his price, obviously, is 202k, and that is the only downside. Outside of that, 5 goals in week 1, has 91. Backs up with 0 goals in week 2, but what did he score this week? He scored a 55 with 0 goals as a key forward. Now, I don't know about you guys, but he kicks 1 goal, he's 75. So he actually has proven scoring ability even to score without kicking goals, which is something that not a lot of key forwards can actually attribute to. So to me, I don't think he's a terrible option if you needed someone. Now, the problem is who you go down from. Probably Rowe. Are you making much money out of that? Probably not. Like, there's not really much gain from a Rowe or someone, or it might even be, a Scott if you're really desperate or something like that.
Side note on a Thilthorpe, Tex Walker also looking for those who are considering getting rid of him. I think if you have another rookie like Rowe or Scott on field, they're just as likely to score you a 20. So probably hold this week and upgrade if you can. Thilthorpe, he could be the reason they now have extra targets in that forward line. You have another big-bodied forward ruck, big, strong, young fellow. That's another target for people to kick to. So it's good for Adelaide because they're not as predictable, but also bad for Tex because Tex doesn't get every single kick coming forward.
Well, there's that. But
we'll see. I'm not sure.
I'll also, I'll couple that with saying that for the last 3 weeks, Tex has not looked as good. I'm talking about when the ball's coming into the forward line, how far he's getting up the ground, him trying to compete for marks, and he's now getting double teamed as well, which is unlike what was happening in the first few weeks.
Sometimes you pay double for that kind of action.
Right. And if you actually look You do. If you look at the
have you asked?
if you look at and the way that Texas scored his goals, a lot of them are from centre bounce. So the reason for that is he's got a one-on-one contest, right? And he's just going to kill them on the lead. Like he's absolutely like brilliant in the lead, brilliant one-on-one strength. The problem that I find with Tex moving forward is that they've worked him out now. So if he comes up with a bad game this week, yeah, you can probably chop that out to like Port Adelaide. But what happens if it's again the next week and then the next week?
Well, mind you, Port Adelaide absolutely let Danaher and some of the other Lions forwards fly last week. Different for a showdown. I think Port Adelaide away, you can get on any forward against Port Adelaide away.
Totally okay, but I just think that I get what you're saying. I just think that, first of all, his calf is an issue.
Yes, agreed.
And that's impacting his fitness, is impacting his ability to get the ball outside the arc. And then they're just double teaming inside the 50 when the ball's...
Yeah, and there's another forward target and he's injured-ish.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they're not winning the centre clearance,
Or they're not winning games, which they won 3 out of their first 4, which was big on his scoring.
Right, but so when's Sloan due back?
Sloan could be the issue. Sloan could be the
This is what I'm
connector.
saying.
This week,
This
hopefully.
is
This
a
week.
huge issue with their midfield that I think that they need to be addressed. When Sloan comes back, I think it absolutely massively improves Tex in terms of his ability to score because they can get first possession out of the clearance.
Maybe he just misses his biffle.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
But I just think it's an issue.
right.
Look, just keep an eye on it. I don't have Tex, so I like it. He's not scoring well, but I just think that right now I would be looking to move him on. If it's not this week, then I'd be moving him on next week. That's personally my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. If I don't move him on this week, I'm moving him on next week.
What about you, Swizz? What's your thoughts on Taylor Walker?
In my perfect world, I'd like to get him through to the buys. Make life a lot easier since he's got the round 14 buy. It just depends on his performance this week. Like if he can get that sort of 75, 80, then it's not a problem, and I'm happy to continue to hold him. If it looks like it's another low score in that, then yeah, obviously I'll make the move.
Yeah, but Port Adelaide, West Coast, Melbourne, Richmond, Collingwood, Saints before their bye, and you would say Melbourne, Richmond are going to be real difficult. West Coast could be okay next week if there's no McGovern and stuff back, then he could be all right. So the next 2 weeks he could do okay. He could stabilise his price. If he scores 90, I think he'll only flatten out about 430, so only about another 25, maybe under what he is now. Even that's if he gets 90s.
Melbourne and
Richmond are the big ones. Not great at all. Collingwood, St Kilda, I think he has a lot better options to score well there.
Yeah, but you're not holding him 4 weeks, are you? Like if he goes poor this week and then he has a mediocre game against West Coast and then he drops a poor score against Melbourne and then drops a score against
Richmond.
Yeah, of course. But as I said, if he goes sold enough this week, and then it just becomes a week by week.
He's obviously also saved by the fact that the forwards are absolutely shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the top 10, I think the 10th averaging forward, if you take out the injured forwards, which is Dunkley and Zach Butters, I think the 10th is like 91.3, and it's like Tom McDonald or something similar. And Tom McDonald is moving back.
Jack Darling,
guaranteed.
I think. Yeah,
Jack Darling, it is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's where it comes down to. It's like, okay, who am I going to anyway? Unless Jesse Hogan somehow he goes off again this week, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, maybe. But then that's a risk as well. Harry McKay's a risk. So to burn that trade at the moment, is it really even worth it?
I completely agree with you. I think that there's a lot of issues right now in terms of the forward line, in terms of forward premiums, and it makes it hard to plan ahead. So it's like, okay, well, let's see what you've got right now. The forward rookies are shit. Now, in an ideal world, we'd fill up our forward line first if we could, just because the forward options are so first of all low priced, but
they're not scoring well. But then the forward premiums aren't doing well, so you're kind of like,
So from a strategy perspective, it's like, well, I can take a punt here, though, right? Surely, like you can take a punt on someone like, and we'll probably go into this a little bit later, but a little bit like an Isaac Heeney, for example, that we will touch on when we go into the premiums. But there is just a few more options that have opened up in the forward line that you can take a punt on because we need to score 90 to be around the mark. That's really all you need, right?
I think that's fair. Let's round out the rookies for next week. We've already touched on Riley Collier-Dawkins. So, again, he could make 117 predicted over the next couple of weeks. He's a decent price and obviously plays early this week for those who are interested. Next one as well. We're looking at Pultia. Puta.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly touch on him. Now, the reason why I like him is obviously mid forward at 117k, so pretty much basement price. But his role, and I want to talk about the Collingwood rookies and their roles and what's happening at the Pies. Now, unfortunately, Finlay McRae has been stuck forward. I'm pretty confident he will be dropped this week. So I'm sorry for those out there who have Finlay McRae.
Swizz.
Pretty sure he'll be dropped, and I think Henry will come in. So Henry kicked 3 goals, 3 in the twos, and had a close to best on ground performance. The other one that could also come in is Reef McInnes. He kicked the game-winning goal last week, and by all reports, played very, very well. But Caleb Poulter was playing higher up the ground and getting a lot more disposals, and so he was playing a wing and high half forward role as opposed to being stuck in the forward line in the pocket. And not performing. Unfortunately, McRae really should be around the ball, not Josh Thomas.
If only I kept Henry. Everybody in the 3-1-3 kick 3 goals. Was it 3 goals 3?
Yeah, I mean, I like where you went with it. But
Follow me.
So I actually like the look of Poulter. Now, we'll get to I don't think he's one you go early on. I think RCD is clearly outstandingly the one you go early on. But that part of the reason why I want to go early on RCD is that I've got the option next week to get Poulter, because I do think that his role is good enough and he's playing good enough to actually have a sustained run in the ones. So just something to keep an eye on. Owies, of course, 123k forward only.
Owies!
I don't know. Now, my issue with him is that he's basically a carbon copy of Rowe, in that he's a forward pocket player that kicked 3 goals and had like 6-7 possessions and kicked 67. Like,
I don't know. I see his name and I think liar. Owies! What are you doing? I'm kicking my ass. Do you mind?
I respect that.
Well, Chris, Owies can't play Essendon every week. So.
No, exactly. That's also true. But he had some fucking great service. Like, Doherty hit him out, lace out twice. And look, he was good enough to convert. But like, again, small forwards who need to kick goals to score well, I'm not interested. He didn't. I think he only laid 1 tackle. Just maybe don't quote me on that one. But right now, he would have to go very well next week for me to want to bring him in based on his role. Edwards was okay. Burns, similar. We've got Brian, who was the ruck for Essendon. Not sold on him yet, but I mean, 1 week's a long time in football. I probably lean in another week. And then we've also got Madden next week as well, who played at the Lions. Did you end up even noticing there was a rookie out there called Madden? Yeah. No idea? Sounds like you had no idea.
No, sounds like EA Sports.
Yeah, right. So so I think for me, it's RCD 1, Poulter 2, potentially Brian 3, depending on if Flynn plays, because there might be an opportunity to get a basement price rookie there, and then Owies. So depending on what he obviously scores next.
Owies!
Sorry, okay, stop. So did you notice anything else out from these rookies, Swizz?
No, I unfortunately missed the Collingwood games as I was playing cricket, so missed that. But I think you're right on the money with the other 3.
Yeah, okay, excellent. All right, well, that gets us past the rookies, and now you can. So I think from that you should be able to determine that there might be 3 rookies that you want out of the next 2 weeks. So it may, obviously.
Yeah, if you don't have cash now, double downgrade and then upgrade next week.
So that's why it's an option to double down, because there's so many. Obviously, in the Swizz situation where you got that much cash, you need to kind of spend that cash and get those guys, those premiums working for your team. But if you have no cash, like a lot of people don't at the moment, definitely either double downing this week or next week could be the option. The reason we say this week is probably because there is quite a few fallen options that are going to become available in the next few weeks. And that's going to be what we're going to try and focus on now. So, Swizz, tell us...
Look at that, Chris. I'm going to double down. You get to keep the money you have left over, right?
Yeah, sure.
If only.
I wish. Yeah, it's really going to serve your team real well. That's how you win the 200, the 50k, mate. You have 50k in the bank at the end of the season. You win the 50k. That's how it works, right?
Well, Sounds right to me.
All right, let's jump into the fallen premiums. Those who, if you are looking to upgrade this week, are good options to go. We're going to start with the notoriously spoken about Stephen May, 408k. He has a lovely break even of 5, so he's predicted to go up about 40k this week, 20k next week, and stabilise. Now, obviously, this is bumped up by the fact he scored a 145 this week.
Great for my draft team. Thank you very much, boys.
Against North Melbourne. Obviously, North don't have the best forwards in town, so Stephen May is going there. Now, the big thing for me is, apart from his scoring, yes, he killed the back end of last year. People are thinking he might do it this year. But does Tom McDonald going back into defence free up May to possibly intercept a bit more?
No, well, I mean, obviously the only reason that is because Tomlinson was ruled out this today for the season with an ACL. So I would hazard a guess, and this is a guess because right now we're making assumptions. Now that's the problem with this. We're
making inferences.
We're making inferences that Tom McDonald will play lockdown defender on whoever like
any
Tomlinson was
any big boy
to free up May. Now May has proven to do that.
And the reason why we're thinking that, no, not to steal the thunder there, boys, but not only because it doesn't change their structure with Tomlinson been playing that, but Wiedemann has been killing the second.
Now, having said that as well, they will have another force change because it's likely that Fritsch will get suspended for his hit on power.
He got off.
Oh, you're kidding.
What did he say? I put my arm up and he ran into my elbow.
I put my arm back and forth. Back and forth.
I was thinking again, Van Wilder is like, if the glove don't fit, you're full of shit. That was his defense.
How did he get off?
He ran into me. It's like a collision. Wow.
Okay.
Did he also get off his fine? His suspension. Yeah, right. There you go.
Well, that's good. That's good news. That's good news for Stephen May. Because I think then that's a straight swap. So Tomlinson for Wiedemann, I'm pretty confident that will be the change, and Tom McDonald will go back. However, again, we are definitely we don't know that information at this point. Teams on the Thursday would be nice, boys, wouldn't it?
Oh, hopefully any minute now. Waiting for that news.
But for those people who follow me on Twitter, I've been on a war path with the AFL this week, and a few nuffies out there who have been wanting to argue me about this.
Don't feed the trolls.
There was 13,000 people who voted on that AFL poll. 94% of normal people voted we want Thursday night teams, and the AFL came out today and said we will be bringing back Thursday night teams. Now, when they implement that, we'll wait and see, but we have Thursday night teams coming back.
Where can people find you on the line there, Swizz?
I'm at Swizz26, or a few people see me on Facebook at Dave Swizz, but Twitter in particular at Swizz26. I'm the guy eating the crocodile.
Nice, thank you very much.
Have you actually eaten a crocodile though?
I actually have, but not obviously.
Tastes like chicken.
So look, I think that I think Wiedemann does come back. I think that's a no-brainer change for them. Just on the changes, I actually didn't. I actually mentioned this to Swizz. I actually don't really hate the whole Thursday night teams thing, and the reason is I just find that this year it's actually made a larger skill gap in Supercoach and probably other fantasy codes as well, but. There's a reason why I'm in the top 1,000, and it could just be a whole lot of nuffies just gave up because they just didn't like that there wasn't any Thursday night teams. So.
No, not only that, but I think the community, those who have a decent community of followers and people that they talk to, because I've been finding a lot more about VFL namings and who's named, like getting that information through other sources.
It's forcing you to actually do more research. This is what I'm saying. The people that are actually interested and invested, they're still getting the information that they need before the round starts. A lot of people aren't. So therefore, it's the guys that actually put the more effort in, and probably a lot of those people who are listening to our podcast.
Chris, you follow my coattail all year round.
I tell you what, I didn't follow you on Josh Kelly, mate.
Oh, how?
Step on my head when I'm drowning. What a great friend. What do you mean, what? John, this is completely against the rules.
Ben, apparently messaging us all day Thursday counts as effort.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, that's my effort. Yep. So look, here's the thing. Do we think that Stephen May will be top 6? And if
Well,
not,
no
does it
and no.
matter if he's not?
Well, the first thing about that whole top 6 thing, I've had a couple of people argue with me this today, is it's not about what he averages for the season, it's what he averages from now. So let's make that clear for those people who are arguing me saying, "Oh, he's never been top 6 for a year." I don't care about the year. It's let's focus. Can he go top 6 from now?
I agree with you. That's 100% a consideration. Anytime you trade anyone in, and it would be, I know there are people such as Pistol from Dr. Supercoach who actually do have a separate spreadsheet where they track what that player that they brought in averaged from the time that they brought them in to the time that at the end of the season or when they trade them out. Now,
Well, I can tell you, Josh Kelly averaged bugger all before I traded him out. I don't need no spreadsheet for that.
Write that down.
right. So what I mean by that is, okay, so you've got really what we need, and I really hope that Supercoach implement this, is you need an average for your position on the field. So what is your D1
do.
average? What is your D2? No, not the names of the players, your positions. So what's your D1 average for the season? What's your D6 average for the season? Does that make sense?
But you can say even here, Zeeble, and then if you look...
No, on your team.
Okay, right.
So
You
your
go.
position itself, your D6, what has that average for your season? So your rookie average
Okay, right.
plus your premium average or your
Anyway.
mid-price average or whatever it may be.
That sounds great for another podcast.
I know. I'm just saying that it's a consideration. Is it's not about now. It's about what the next 10 rounds or 11 rounds.
Well,
is or whatever it may be.
fan footy does have that information. If you look through a player, you can actually track what they've gone at different times. So I'm looking at Stephen May last year, and when I brought him in, he went 111 for the rest of the season. So he was fantastic for me because that was obviously one of the highest averaging defenders. Now, like a lot of people are hoping he's going to do the same. Now, do you think he can do that, Chris?
No, I can't. No. But the main reason is I do think that he's not necessarily a bad pick because I think he's a value pick regardless, right? The thing is, I like it's what you have right now versus what you can bring in. Okay, so I don't necessarily think so. Being top 6 is nothing to me. It means literally nothing because I only have one spot in my defense, right? So it's not about is he a top 6 for me. It's is he the best option remaining, and he's not. And I think, personally, by a long shot, because I think that Whitfield arguably will average 110 to 115 for the rest of the season.
Especially in defense. Like I'm literally looking at Whitfield. I'm looking at Mills, Bowes, like much better than my...
I don't have Stewart.
Well,
he's averaging 110 right now.
Everyone's much better than Luke Ryan this week.
That's all the truth. So I think he can personally average somewhere between 95 to 100 for the rest of the season.
And that's serviceable for
And
408k.
absolute value.
There's no real decent forwards at 400k. And if you need a defender and you're someone that has only 3 or 4 premiums, then sure, I think that's a great investment to lock it up. Ooh, and I missed an opportunity there.
Yeah, you did. But I think he's probably 10 to 15 points off being the best available person I don't have. And that I suppose that's the difference. So if you're in a position where you already have the best 5 or you got close to it, or you just don't rate Whitfield for whatever reason, or you've only got 4 premiums in the defense and you need 2 more, then I think May's a fantastic selection. Or the other option is you could look at maybe having May there and potentially have him as a loophole option later in the season. So you bring him in now over the buys, you get another person in, and then you can look to loophole one of your guys because he's at that price where it's just it's almost too good to pass up. What are your thoughts on that, mate?
Which mate, me?
Yes, you. Yeah, nah, fuck Ben.
No, he wouldn't say that to me.
Yeah, he ain't my mate.
Like Stephen May did a great job for me last year, and I really like how he's intercept marking. So I'm not against people doing it because there's a lot of value there, and a lot of people are looking for value because of the lack of cash generation from the rookies. They need to make some of these decisions, like some people made with Brayshaw last week. The flip side to that, Dan Houston will be 420 in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Jaden Short and Ridley will be both under 500. So for me to spend an extra, say, 90K to pick up Ridley, who is pretty well guaranteed to go like 110 for just the role and how he plays, that I'm willing to spend that little bit of extra cash, or I can just wait an extra week for Houston.
Is Ridley going that low?
Ridley will get under 500.
Ridley has a higher break even than what he did last year.
His break even actually went up last week. That because I know a few people tell me getting back in at 590 with break even of 190, whatever it was. His break even went to 204. So.
I can see like 84% of the comp or something licking their lips, absolutely crazy. I think we need to move on though, guys, and start looking at some other options here for those who are at a low price point. So Shai Bolton, 479k. He did go up 26,000, but he is still a good price point. Break even now is still quite low. His break even is 66, so he's still quite low. Do you recommend anyone bring in Shai Bolton there, Swizz?
No.
Yeah, me either. I don't
completely agree with you.
I know, but some people were like, "Oh yeah, Shai Bolton did well." Yeah.
There's a reason for that. Now, obviously being a Tiger or that, like I love Shai Bolton. Hope he re-signs with us and that. Absolute gun. But he actually spends quite a lot of time up forward. And that score was boosted because he literally won the game for us in that last quarter, kicked the clutch goal, was everywhere. So off the top of my head, his halftime score was only on about 30. But I think he scored 90 in the second half, and a lot of that came in the last quarter.
Yep, first half I was laughing, going, sucked in anyone that brought in Bolton, and then next minute he pulled a Josh Kelly on me. So
yeah, kicked 3 goals and had 22. Like honestly, like don't get me wrong, even though he did that, like spent a lot of the game forward, which is completely fine if that's his role. But moving forward, his role's not going to get any better. And if that's his best game, it's nowhere near like the ceiling that other guys can get with a similar output or a similar role. I just don't like the fact that he needs to be a match winner for him to have a 120 score. And
he got lucky because obviously we've come from the clouds to win that game. So more points for his impact on the game at the time. But if Tom Lynch had kicked straight, that game's over at half time and that we would have been, he would have kicked 5 and then missed another one completely.
Yeah.
He just the way the situation, the game panned out, so he had a massive impact on the game, which boosted those numbers.
Yeah, you don't have to be nice to Swizz. You don't have to pump his tyres. Easy answer, Shai Bolton, no shit, can't move on.
I just also think, just on that, like, yes, his break-even
I don't want him leaving then. I want him to sign.
No, he's got to listen to this podcast and say, nah, Swizz fucking told me you didn't want me, therefore I'm fucking leaving the Tigers.
Yeah, he's not going to re-sign.
Just quickly on that. So, yeah, he's got to break even 66, but he's going to be 480 again another time during the season. So, like, it's not a must bring in. Like, trust me, he's not going to be outpriced you this season.
Agreed. Next one, Dayne Zorko, 487,000. Only went up 2,400. Still a great price point for those that want to bring him in. Even more so now, the best benefit that you can have is that Zorko is coming into my side this week, which means that he isn't blessed until he's...
#blessed.
And he's blessed from now. He is not Josh Kelly. He is going to be actually blessed in my side.
Blessed Zorko.
Blessed. I am blessing Zorko. Not only did he reply to my message...
His middle name now, instead of the magician, it's #blessed. Dayne #blessed Zorko.
That sounds horrible. So he replied, he owes me a coffee. We're all good. There's truce there. There's amending. I'm now #blessing him because he is in my side and he wants to tackle, kick goals, had a lot of CBAs on the weekend. Loving life.
I wasn't loving his score, but if that's what he's going to dish up,
basement.
92
That's basement.
At a basement, I'm going to be okay with it. I still think he's a must-have. I was hoping for more, but I can't be greedy because between him and Brayshaw, I didn't go too bad. I mean, other guys had a lot worse weeks. Hey, Ben. What was your net rating? You had a 91 from Steele and 107 from Bolton, and Brayshaw went 121 and Zorko went 92, didn't they?
Yeah, and that's like $300,000 less too. Fuck you very much.
Oh no! Sometimes you just got to take the value when it presents. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes, like Josh Kelly, for instance.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Okay.
Now, I just want to highlight your attention to a couple of guys that I have been thinking of. I think these two are arguably the next ones. Marshall and I'll go through him first, but I also want to touch on Isaac Heeney after that. Now, Marshall obviously kicked the 2 goals. He still had the 86. I want to see him another week. He's got a break even of 97. So even if he goes gangbusters, he's not going to price you out. But next week could be the last week you can pick him up at a good price if he goes gangbusters. So it's watch this space. And if he goes 120 plus, you have to get him. And if he hovers around 100, he buys you another week.
But in a big win, only going 86 doesn't fill me with that much confidence.
No, it doesn't, but it gives you a baseline of what to expect.
What a baseline of it. What about when they lose by 70 points instead of winning by...
That's what I mean. Like if he goes sub 100 this week, you don't have to get him this week. You can still wait on it. But if he goes 120 next week, surely you have to get him. Surely he's the next best.
My name's not Shirley.
As a guy that averaged 100 in a team with Ryder as the main ruck last season.
In a team that was winning last season.
We've got enough evidence there to say...
Evidence? St Kilda are not doing well this season.
They just started winning. They just got Ryder back. Calm down.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who did they beat again? Oh, yeah, they had a great week, though.
They did have a great week.
Yeah,
they had a great week.
Against Hawthorn. Right. Okay. So, okay.
What are your thoughts on Marshall there, Swizz?
Yeah, I like him, but not just yet. I can see people making the move now, but Geelong and Bulldogs coming up in the next couple. He's one of those guys I kind of want to, as much as they have the last buy, I really want to wait that long. I don't think he's going to hurt you price-wise and might be that sort of last upgrade target.
Yeah. My only thing with that is that he's also the last buy.
That's the problem, but
it's actually a benefit to get him now rather than later, and that's why I bring him up, because like if he goes big next week, I'd just rather get him now. I know that I'm going to have him for. I actually my personal forward line. I've got Zeeble, Impey, Zorko, and who's my 4th forward?
Not Tex.
Definitely not Tex. I don't even know right now. It's escaping me, but it's someone with a round 1 and round 2 bye. So the round 12 and round 13 bye. So I don't have any premium forwards in the round 14 bye. So for me, it makes every sense to bring in a St Kilda forward for that to complement my actual buy structure. Now, if this is going to be the lowest price, is going to be before the buys, I want to get on him. But what I'm hoping is, he doesn't price me out in the next couple of weeks, and then I can reevaluate my other options, because there are other options coming in, like
Isaac Heeney.
So tell me what your thoughts are, Ben, because I know that you love Isaac Heeney more than most.
Oh, look, the sun just glistens off his hair.
It does.
354K.
Looks like there's a beach that follows him everywhere he runs.
Yeah, or he goes into a dam and doesn't get injured. When he goes out onto dry land, all of a sudden he's fucked. 354K, he's already dropped 100,000. He's projected to drop another 34, but he's projected to score 61, so that doesn't tell you too much. The issue is, though, he did get injured the last couple of games. He had a 54, I think he heard when he broke his hand and punched someone, so it turns out he's not so tough. And then he injured himself again this week. Got a 19.
Yeah, he got
ankle.
He played the game out.
Yeah,
but
80% time on ground.
He had
but
2 knocks. Like, he got kneed in the ribs. Like, he had 2 knocks during the game, and he ended up playing a game out, but it was on very low time on ground, and for that reason, obviously, didn't have the greatest of scores.
Well, 80% time on ground, he got there.
Yeah, well,
didn't do anything, but he got there.
Again, as a forward, it's not great. Now, the problem is twofold. First of all, he obviously loves to cop a knock, and second of all, he loves to get injured. But there's a third problem, and that's currently roll.
Isaac should like my jokes then.
He should like,
because they're all knock knock. Sorry, Swiss.
So obviously with Reed injured right now, and of course with Franklin out, that means he's basically a stay-at-home forward right now. So over the next few weeks, we're going to be able to see him hopefully turn that around.
Franklin's coming back.
Franklin's playing.
Yeah, he's playing. He's in.
Right. So we get to see at least 1 week of Heeney back in this team this week, and we can reevaluate. Now, if Heeney is next week 330, 340K, my argument is this.
Well, with me, he is it's Warner down to Heeney.
Right.
It's amazing to think, right? Warner actually, can might have to net you a few K down to Heeney, and then Heeney coming up will have Collingwood at home, Freo, I believe, have been told to pack heavy because they play Sydney play Freo later in the year, and if there's still that COVID issue, around, there's always a chance that could be moved to the SCG. Even so, Freo aren't the strongest opponents. Then they play Carlton, and I think they've got Hawthorn before the Buys as well. So there's some possibility there that Heeney could, play one of his big games, or even if he's playing forward, kick a few goals. And that 293 to 100k price tag is very juicy.
Yeah, I think they had 30 travelling. Told everyone to pack heavy except for Tracy. They told him to pack light because he is heavy. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be like what Brisbane had to do, and go away for a couple of weeks.
So here's my plan, lads. Another thing that it works in Heeney's favour is that he has the last bye. So again, a guy that can take you right through. Now, around about that time of the year, that's when Dangerfield is due to come back and return. Now, I want Danger in my final team, but I arguably don't think he might be ready to get into my team before I need that last premium. So my idea is I will trade in Isaac Heeney as my F6 for now, after, say, a Marshall. So not next week, but maybe 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, depending on when he bottoms out or whatever it might be. If he shows form of turnaround, because there's no point in getting him if he's just going to average a 40 for the rest of the season. And then you can just keep him right up until the time where you get Danger in, and then move him to F7 and loophole Heeney for the rest of the season. And you really only need him as a half-decent scorer for about 6 weeks of the year. Now, I think that's a pretty good idea. What do you guys think?
Well, for me, it's not. I'm really happy with my buy structure. So the idea of, as you mentioned before, Marshall, possibly a Tex Walker to Marshall and a Warner to Heeney doesn't change my buy structure because it's the same buy for those guys.
Yeah.
And I do like the idea. Now I'm looking at possibly for value loopholing Heeney with another player, which plays for your team, Chris, because I can see.
There you go.
Don't do it. Just save yourself the pain.
But for the value that and the scores that we know Heeney can put up, I think there's minimal risk there, especially these rookies will get tired and they'll be looking at some of these senior bodies to take some of the slack in the second half of the year.
Surely you're better off spending $650 to $700 on a premium.
Oh, you need 8 something, don't you? Because you need a rookie as well, right?
Well, 5 and 150.
Look, I agree with you because I'm actually very anti Degoe this season. I don't know. It could be headspace. It could be 100 different things. It could be also just Collingwood a crap, and there's that. But there's actually another guy that I want to just highlight here who may well come in this week. A little guy by the name of Jake Riccardi. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He played in the twos this week and had 40 disposals playing at centre-half back and I think close to 20 marks.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So he's actually priced at 306K. Hasn't had a price movement just yet, but if you see him come into that defence, there could be someone to watch out for. So just someone to keep a little eye on. Obviously, they've flagged throughout, just so the preface to this, Cameron had came out in the preseason and said, look, we love all the boys, but we can only really play the 3 forwards. And they had 4 of them. So they've got Riccardi, they've got Hogan, they've got Himmelberg, and they've got Finlayson, right? Now, one of them's always got a miss. That's what he said at the start of the season. So Riccardi's obviously gone back to try and break into the AFL team as a defender. He's come out this week and had 40 disposals as a defender. That's Brian Lake territory. That's, remember when Brian Lake hit 200 Supercoach? Woo!
Remember, and Riccardi, so his break even sitting at 97 at the moment. So the hope would be he's got an 11 in his score. So 2 weeks of that, dropping some cash, and in that time, Nick Haynes will come back. So you're hoping in a perfect world after their round 12 bye, and they lead into North Melbourne, Carlton, Hawthorn and Gold Coast, he could be the perfect person at around that 250K to just come into your forward line as a perfect F7.
Yeah, and like we've seen with Impey and Zeeble dominating from defence, these forwards that are listed as defenders have a lot of scope because, they only need to average you 90 to be in that sort of top echelon of forwards. So just someone to keep an eye on. I'm not saying that it's just a must-have or anything like that, but look, as a nice little F7, I do not mind Jake Riccardi at this point.
Also, a reminder, whoever won the 2019 competition actually loopholed Isaac Heeney in the final round to win because I think Isaac stunk it up.
Good on him.
Yep. And that's where, and I know you're not big on DeGoey, but I'm looking at my forward rookies and everyone's talking about, rolling. Brockman, there's a lot of talk that he could be back this week for those who have held him. But, so hopefully he gets sort of that up to that low 200s. But so there's not a lot of cash development with these guys. So if you can side trade a Brockman, a Rowe to a Heeney, Riccardi, even a DeGoey, and using that as an F6, F7 with a loop, one of those as an F8 loophole, gives you some ability that you might be able to get some good scores from them and some cash generation.
And the other thing, consideration, and look, maybe there are people out there that are really struggling, like Grimo, for example, a mate of ours struggling with trades. And sorry to shout you out again, Grimo, and just bring your team down. But like, I'm looking at having a fairly completed midfield, completed team fairly quickly. Now, I will have spare trades to try and get that extra person that you can try and loophole. Here's the thing. So would you rather, loophole someone like an Isaac Heeney you've picked up at 300K or a Riccardi or whatever it might be, or two of them.
Or DeGoey. Say his name.
Or DeGoey. And then and have the cash to get a Whitfield? Or would you bring in Stephen May at that cheaper price and then upgrade to a higher forward is there a higher forward? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're probably better off spending that cash, that little extra cash, instead of going May, to go up to a Whitfield or up to like a very top echelon defender like a Ridley or like a...
Chris, it's a couple of reasons. So I've had 2 500 finishes in the last 3 years, but have burnt sort of my trades going into those last 3 or 4 rounds, and things that have got me by where other people have been in a situation where they've burnt they've got no trades left and somebody's pulled out either in the midfield or the forward line, or someone has stunk it up, as in the Heeney story with the person who won. I've had that F7 who has that flexibility between the forward and mids who, when I've had that 1 week injury, they've able to cover them. If you can get that extra value while it's there, especially in the forward line, where the high expensive forwards are only averaging 95 anyway, and these guys on their day can go 90 to 120. I would rather spend the money on a premium defender like Whitfield, Ridley, Stewart, where I know that they're going 110, and just stream the forwards.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The forwards are just, in terms of their up and down, not great.
The high highs and the low lows.
Dusty and Sidebottom, obviously, you've got to keep an eye on those guys coming up forward. I think if you don't have Dusty, I don't think there's many that do, but let's just say if you don't have him, you probably need to get him in the next few weeks.
Yeah, the ones we're looking at.
Yeah, you don't have him.
I must sound like the worst Richmond supporter out there. No, Shai Bolton. No, I don't have Dusty.
You have to get him in the next 2 weeks, right? Just so you know.
Yep, same
that's why I have 460K sitting there.
Fair enough, mate.
Because it's going to cost you less than that to get him. I agree. I think ones to watch, and we'll cover this on a next podcast, but start to think about freeing up cash and starting to look at, if it means not getting May this week, it's like, well, if you don't have Ridley, then Ridley will be under 500 next week. So save the money, go down, get a Frederick, etc., go up later to Ridley. I think that's an easy one. A
lot of people don't have Ridley, right? And I think we would all be in agreement in saying that Ridley is a must-have at some point, right?
Oh, must-have.
I believe nearly everybody, a lot of people jumped on. I saw his percentage was, it's only 23% still, so there's still quite a few people who don't have him. So he's 540 at the moment. Even Supercoach have got him projected going 105, 104 the next 2 weeks. But even next week, if he went 105 against the Giants, he would drop another 45K. So hopefully it's another low score like the 87 against the Blues, and that'll see him coming down to at least a 490.
What was his?
They're playing GWS.
Time on ground. Like, can we check up his time on ground? I felt like Ridley didn't play as much time on ground last week. Now that obviously could be concussion related. I'd like to actually have a look at those stats if you could bring them up.
Yeah, I've got that. So just getting a moment.
You're right. No worries.
What was his time on ground there, Swissy?
Well, I think the interesting thing is GWS as well. Fremantle, North are the next three. You need to get Ridley.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I actually think there's a reason for his lower score. I just think it was more time on ground related, which then obviously impacts his kickouts because if he's not on the ground, like it's like Short. Like Short takes freaking breaks at the 7-minute mark of every single quarter, and it's freaking annoying because obviously.
Would you like to guess his time on ground, Chris?
I would say 83%.
He was the only player to have 100%.
You're kidding.
No.
Really? Well, that's a really good sign then. Okay, well, there goes that out the window.
Jeez. 100%, yeah. Okay, yeah, right. Go Ridley. So I think GWS, Fremantle, North, I think you wait 1 week, wait for them to play GWS, you jump on the Fremantle and North train.
That's interesting because he didn't have as many kickouts as he normally would.
No, well, maybe they didn't miss as many.
Have that, but yeah, I don't. What did the Blues end up kicking behind wise? But also, I think what affected them, it was such a high scoring game. There was a lot more goals chewing up a lot of those Supercoach points last week.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, not very real. Not very often do you see a game of 107 versus 123, and the Blues kicked 19-9, so there weren't that many kickouts for the game. So a 35-goal game. That's going to affect the other scoring.
So 2-1 goal.
Let's just
ratio.
put it as something to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks.
Yep. So if you don't have Ridley, I'd be looking at next week, or depending how he scores this week, the week after. I think that's definitely an interesting one. When we're looking at the break evens as well, Steele is the next one, 166 break even. He dropped a substantial 36,000. Why did I pay overs for this Muppet?
I don't think you had the right idea.
Yeah,
they did dominate the game.
But once again, my fault. Jack Steele versus Hawthorn, I thought he would just dominate, absolutely rack up the pill. Turns out you can't tackle the opposition when they don't have the ball, and he just let everyone else do it. I think it's not a bad thing as far as maybe he's fresh now for this week. He just let everyone else do the running.
I don't think
and
that's
the downhill skiing. Hey,
I think he still ran 14 Ks on the day.
Look, I'm thinking positively here now, okay? Because I essentially Josh Kelly went to Steele for me, and I lost points.
Well, what do you think that Steele's going to average for the season?
I think he still averages 115 to 120 for the rest of the year.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not that optimistic on him, to be fair.
Well, I think he's still got the ceiling for 150s.
I think 115.
I think it's his upper. I put him more as a 110 to 115 player, but I still think he's a great player. Like that's put him in the top 6, right? Like for sure. The good news is this year, really, if you look at the midfield averages of all the guys, outside of McRae, and Walsh is, I think, second right now in terms of midfield average. I think he's 120. Really, that's about it. I mean, everyone else is around that sort of 115 and between 110 and 115. So there's a whole bunch of guys in that 110 to 115 category. Oh, sorry, I lie. Cameron Guthrie.
Just having one look at that crook-looking bastard.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that was a setup there. Yeah, Cam Guthrie obviously going fantastically. Do we think that Cam Guthrie holds that, though?
You don't say that.
Yeah, I can't see him holding that.
No, well, once Dangerfield comes back in, then happy days.
Yeah.
And I said this off the podcast, I'll say it again. I am going to invoice Dangerfield my lost bet for Guthrie.
You know who I think averages 115 from here to the end of the season?
Josh Kelly. Fuck you.
You don't say that.
I actually really like Josh Kelly as an in. He's basically bottomed out. He's had a role change. So he's moved back up to the wing. He was playing on a half-forward flank and in a forward pocket for most of the season. The second Whitfield comes in, he has a role change.
When a problem comes along, you must zip it. Zip it good.
And on that, Chris, about Josh Kelly, because I'm seriously with the one up, one down. It's between Kelly and Tom Mitchell for me right now. And Kelly's he plays Essendon this week, but then 2 weeks after that, it's Richmond and West Coast. And his last game against Richmond, he scored 195, and last game against West Coast was a 139. So he has great history against those sides.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how awesome Josh Kelly is? Because I'm sitting next to a guy here.
Straight after his bye, he has North Melbourne and his favourite team in Carlton.
Oh, wow. So he's a guy that you could probably get in now, really.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm bringing him back in next week. We're in.
Wait, you could bring him in for Ryan. I'm just loving it.
Worrying is like a rocking chair. Gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere.
Sorry, mate. Hey,
look, I'm happy to be your emotional punching bag.
Well, for everyone out there, I believe Ben's looking from Mitchell, so just stay off him and get on Josh Kelly.
I would 100%. If I could, actually, I probably could sideways Mitchell to Josh Kelly at this point. Look, I do actually like. I mean, look, if you're looking for a bottomed out premium, you've got a risk. You've got two risks when you're looking at Josh Kelly. You've got his injury risk because he hasn't had injured this year. And then you've got the risk of Cameron actually completely screwing his role at any point in time. Or you're obviously looking at the Whitfield risk, which is Lachie Whitfield has the risk.
Whitfield, 561k break even, already nice and high. His break even is 147. So happy days there. Wait for him to drop after a couple of rounds and live large.
Yeah, the great thing about his score, I mean, if you looked at his DT to SC was just insane. Like I think he had 110 DT and only 86 SC. So obviously didn't use the ball that well, which is very unlike Whitfield, but it's very normal for a player coming back to not exactly have the best return game. So I'm looking towards him probably going 110, 115 next week. And then we'll look at his break even and see when you need to get him in. So I don't think he's necessarily a must have next week, but I think he's one that if he goes 140, you kind of got to get him, right? Like if he goes 140 next week, it's like, okay, well, his money's not changing. You got to get him.
Yeah, I think he's still got a little bit of time. Even next week with a low score in his first one, I don't think it'll be crazy after that. I think wait for it to stabilise.
Well, we're just guessing at this point, but we know that he can go 140.
Yeah, and Whitfield is definitely someone you should be bringing in. Keep an eye on him in the next couple of weeks. We'll obviously cover that in the next podcast or so as we track him. Next one we're tracking as well is Dan Houston. Dan the Man Houston is 461k, so he's already dropped 39,000. We spoke last week's podcast. He was actually, if you take out his injured game, I think the second highest averaging. After he pumped up his tyres, you can blame Chris for that one. He scored a 54. So that's an interesting one.
What happened last week, mate? Because I didn't watch that game because I had better things to do like drink.
I think he was in the midfield, actually had a shot on goal and stuff like that. So he had a little bit of a different... I'm not sure. I think they got sort of smashed, Chris, is what happened.
Yeah, well, outside of that.
They got smashed and, he still took some kickouts, but he had he had a shot on goal, so he was a bit all over the place, to be honest. He is someone I am considering. 461k. He's projected to drop a little bit.
Here's the question. Is he averaging more than May for the rest of the season?
Yes, for me.
Swizz?
Yes.
So then is it worth holding off and potentially double downgrading this week and then reevaluating next week?
Absolutely.
That is my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
And I was literally going to say the exact same thing, but yeah, I agree with you. I think that if you do not have Houston, I have Houston, so it's not an issue for me, but a lot of people don't. I would rather wait a single week. Their prices probably equalize next week. So regardless of what happens and what each people score, you'll be able to wait a week on May and you can wait a week on Houston, and they will probably both be around 430, 435?
Correct.
And then you can make a decision based on that. You got one more week sample size. So I think that's important to note.
Next one, short, 480k. If you don't have him, I suggest you probably hold off. 97.7 average. I think the last 3 rounds since Hooley's come back in, I think it's a 74, 61, 116. Yes, he did well this week.
Okay, so there's 2 things I'll say about this. First of all...
Don't get him?
No, I actually think he's still a really good option because he loves the junk time ball, doesn't he? So he would have scored 16 to 20 points in junk time at the end of the third quarter. It was the last minute and a half of the game. They just wanted to ice the game before 3/4 time so that they could regroup and then attack the fourth quarter. And he would have got easy. I think he took 3 marks and had 4 possessions in that last 30 minute and a half. So it might be an issue, but he's still the one they look to. He's still the one that they try and get the ball in their hands of. He's still the one that's trying to get there for the cheap possession. Yes, I mean, Hooley scored 140 in the same game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he went big.
So, do I think that he's impacting him? Maybe. The last two games, if you look at him, that first game was against was a whitewash where they absolutely destroyed the Saints and the ball never even left past halfway. And the next one was against the Dogs. Is that right? Or was this week
possibly.
against the Dogs? Now, both of them, they weren't really indicative of what you can expect moving forward. I still don't hate him, but the thing is, right now he's not value, so he'd need to be around that 450k mark to really, want him to get you in. But Swizz, you've obviously got a better knowledge of it. What do you think about Short at the moment?
Yeah, well, he still had 24 kicks on the weekend and that, and he took 9 marks and that. Fantastic role. It's a weird one to say this, but Hawley during Ramadan, he's the best player in the league. For these 3-4 weeks, every year it's the same thing. Now, if I go hungry for more than 3 hours, you seem curled up in the ball. So I don't know how the great man does it, but it always seems to be the case. 3 or 4 weeks, Hawley just goes ham. And then things normalise again when he starts eating during the day. So
I don't know why he even eats then. Just don't eat.
I don't eat, but it seems to always be the case. But Short's still scoring steady enough, and he's still got the right role. And it always seems that Hawley will probably get injured after this, or he drops off, and then Short picks up. So you might be able to pick up Short a little bit cheaper, and if it is that sort of 450 mark, then it might be worth jumping on at that time.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I think if I was to say, would I rather Short or May going into a head-to-head matchup, that's a question. Because on any given week, the problem is Short's now shown the propensity to drop a 60 or a 70, and I don't really want that. But May can also do the same. I don't know that's a
yeah. I think
who's got May's proven to have the highest ceiling so far this season.
Yeah, I think out of all of those, Whitfield we know his base is about 80 flat.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a question. And again, I think with the amount of defenders killing it, you kind of choose your poison and find what suits you, particularly, again, opening strategies, looking at your buy structure. Last one I think we'll touch on is Jack Bowes, 479k. He's someone you could actually pick up now if you were interested. Averaging 105.3, still only in 9% of sides, break even at 84, projected to be going up again. So... Well, flatlining, projected score of 84. I don't know how that works. So he did actually have a little drop off after he killed the first month of football. Had a 73, 92, 110. Only had one score under 92. Now, I think that is actually fantastic. He's got 400s in there, 4 out of 700s. He's got a big ceiling of a 146. He's had, 2 scores over 110, 1 score under 92. I think he is definitely a good option for the Gold Coast.
I completely agree. I mean, one thing I'll say about Jack Bowes is that he's proven to me that he's definitely going to be a top 6 to 10 defender, quite easily. What I will say about bringing in pods is that don't bring in pods for pod's sake. Everyone loves a pod because people like to be like, oh, I got this unique guy that's going really well and blah, blah. But at the end of the day, if you can play 480k for a player A and 480k for player B, but player A is not a pod and player B is not a pod, is a pod, then it doesn't matter if they're averaging the same. What's more risky is going the opposite direction at that point. It's actually way more risky to have a pod than to not have a pod. So you got to take that risk. If the risk comes with a lower price point or a higher average, or there's something you've seen that no one else has seen, then sure. But just don't get a pod just because they're a pod.
My worry about Bowes, he's been playing really well, but the West Coast game, round one, a lot of teams still figuring stuff out where he went to 146. But his next, apart from the 73 against the Dogs, he's played North, Adelaide, Carlton, Sydney, Collingwood. Now, apart from the Swans, all those other teams are struggling. Now, coming up, it's St Kilda, the Lions, Geelong, Port Adelaide. So... yeah, they might see more ball down there, but that one game where he's had against good opposition, he scored a 73.
Yeah, so they're playing some more difficult opponents coming up.
You can look at that both ways.
Can he handle the pressure, or will he Bowes?
I mean, you can look at that both ways because obviously the
Bowes ways?
Both ways, yeah. Well done. The other thing to that is that the ball will be down there more. So if they're getting more heavily scored against, then there's more opportunity for behinds, etc., or intercept marks. And we really don't have enough exposed form on that, other than the 1 game sample size. So it's a sort of and this is another reason why pods are not great, because if he doesn't go well,
Josh Kelly.
Yeah.
Well, he was 7% owned and dropping.
If he doesn't go well, then you're the only one who got in him when he didn't go well. Whereas if you go to a popular defender that is averaging the same, then at least you're going with the crowd mitigating your risk. So if that person goes bad, well, 70% of the comp did bad. Like last week, for example, I bring in Dusty. 70% of the comp has Dusty. So he goes 39 and whatever, I don't care, because 70% of the comp have him. There's no...
And that's the problem right now. Like, just a slightly off topic, but on that, I've had a couple of people ask me about West Coast players, because West Coast usually up around that top 4, at least top 6 mark, and have a really soft draw coming up. Hawthorn, Adelaide twice, Giants, Essendon, Carlton, Sydney, North Melbourne, Collingwood. Like, there's some really soft games there. So this is the sort of time where Gaff, even Tim Kelly showed on the weekend, Jack Darling's flying as a forward option. But those guys are all under 3%. So they sound like, if it pays off, yeah, fantastic. But all I'm going to do is get Kelly or Tom Mitchell at the same price as a Kelly or a Gaff. Yeah. And I find like there's less risk in that, because the moment if Tom Mitchell has a bad week, well, that's another 30% that have with me on that one. But if you've got Gaff or one of those guys, as you said before, in like a Bose, and they have a bad week, well, you're all by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, obviously,
all by myself.
I mean, the mids at West Coast are all having a run. Freaking Jack Redden's had a 3-game average of 106. Like,
don't wanna be.
Well, and obviously the reason is they're just in this situation where their whole side's been battered with injury, and half their midfield's out. So they're having an experience. I think Dom Sheed even had a good game last week. It's his second one all year. All last 5 years, sorry, I should say.
You missed that opportunity. The other thing to note with West Coast as well is I think Elliot Yeo is tipped to come back after the buys, I think, as well. Shuey, who knows? But yeah, definitely some things to consider. I think that kind of wraps us up, boys. It's quite a long podcast going through strategies and obviously people to note. Next week we'll get together again and look at those who have started to bottom out.
It's upgrade season.
It is upgrade season, so that's what we're looking for.
You know what I'm going to say, Ben? Who's your vice captain and captain's choice, man?
Hey!
See, now, if it wasn't Swizz, this whole podcast will be ruined now.
Tell you what, if you guys would be straight as an arrow and a bit more direct, then it wouldn't be an hour and a half in and me trying to wrap up the bloody segment.
I'll lead with I already know off the top of my head. So my vice captain this week is going to be Jack Zeeble. There's a few reasons for that. A little bit of an iffy selection if you ask a lot of people, but I actually think he's arguably the best vice captain option. And I will be going into Gawn. Now, the reason for me vice-captaining Jack Zeeble, Collingwood concede the most marks in their forward line, uncontested marks, I should say, in the entire league. And they have for the last however many weeks. And that is a huge problem for everyone except if your name's Jack Zeeble. He's absolutely going to clean them up. They cannot kick goals to save their life. The one thing I will say is that hopefully they get enough score on the board, or enough behinds on the board, I should say, the Japanese can have 10, 12 kickouts and also do that as well. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting one. I don't think you're going to be alone on that sort of sideways thinking. I'm considering VCing Gawn and then rolling the dice if he fails. I don't think he will. I think he shared a bit more ruck time with Jackson in the week just gone. I think he had 60% ruck time shared with Jackson's 40%. I think that was because of the Dogs. The North Melbourne, so it was a little bit an easier game. So I think Max will be fresh coming up against a top 8 side, and Hickey, I think Max will be in fine form this week.
One thing that scares me, and this is just a comment that I will be saying, it was based on an interview that he had, is that Max did actually acknowledge that the introduction to Ben Brown to the side meant that he was going to be playing more time on the bench per game, which is an interesting thing for him to say. And it kind of scares me off him a little bit. Just saying.
Even better reason for a VC.
That's true.
But, if Zeeble goes, 130, you have to take it, right? And you're sweating.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think 130 this week is going to be fantastic. I'm just worried about obviously the tags from Carlton for the Dogs on the Sunday. And I just noticed that the North players were very, very good at sharking Gawn's taps last week, which obviously could adversely affect Grundy's score. So that is the reason why I'm moving towards a Zeeble VC and a captain on Gawn.
Fair. I'm thinking either I might actually follow you, Zeeble into Gawn, or I might even go Steele into Gawn. Against Gold Coast, I think his body type and everything should match up really well against Gold Coast, so he could go one nice little 150. Otherwise, I'll probably just VC Gawn and roll the dice if he fails.
Nice. What are you going with? A Swizz?
I have the VC also on Zeeble.
Yeah, my boy. You're my boy, Blue Man. You're my boy. Yeah.
Yeah, all the points you said. The only other sneaky one I was considering was Tom Stewart versus Richmond. We've leaked a lot of points to
you guys
defenders
love leaking
this year.
points to defenders, and this is this is probably a good point. Even though I know it's very late in the podcast, one person we didn't bring up as a possible trade-in option was Caleb Daniel, and part of the reason why that is Richmond have leaked points all year to defenders. It was always going to happen that this was going to happen. And with Bailey Williams still out, there is literally no chance I would be getting on Caleb Daniel. So just please keep that in mind. Watch him for another couple of weeks. He's not a must trade in. Just leave that for now, please.
So no one's VCing or seeing.
Was it Grundy? It's Grundy.
I'm off the Grundy this week. Just this week only.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, no, and it'll be Captain McRae for me against the Blues.
Oh, CM, Captain McRae. Yeah, I think VC Gawn into McRae is not a bad idea either.
Look, I don't think McRae's the terrible option because I think Bont is the one that gets the tag. But I just would rather not risk it. And look,
Curnow hasn't even been the best
lockdown tagging anyway. Like, let's be honest,
No.
Curnow really hasn't been.
Except for Brayshaw, he locked down pretty well. But apart from that, Merritt did quite well. Boak still, Barrett and Boak have still gone low hundreds, even with some Curnow attention. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Well, for me, it's the Bulldogs on the rebound. He's gone 138 and 150 in 2 of his last 3 games against the Blues. So if the Blues are going to put any work in, as you said, it's going to be Bont. I can see McRae rebounding this week and having a big one.
Yeah, I don't mind McRae. I really don't.
Yeah, me either. That wraps us up, everyone. Thank you very much. Do like us on the socials. Follow Swizz also on the Twitter. And please don't fuel his hate for those trolls out there. He's a very sensitive man.
Watch out if you're an Essendon supporter.
Look, that wraps us up. If you haven't seen Chris or my team analysis on how our team is shaping up for this week, please do go to YouTube and like that one as well. Obviously, you can just search for a Supercoach Insider on the YouTube and you can look at our teams and how we're tracking.
Yeah.
And that's it. Swizz, thank you for joining us. Any last comments? Are you good?
No, I'm good, boys. You have a great week and all the best for everybody in Supercoach world this week.
Excellent, mate. Thanks very much, and we love you, mate.
Sounds good. Happy for you to get a Richmond player in your team in a couple of weeks. There, Swizz.
Yeah, it would be nice to actually go to a game and cheer somebody.
Yeah, it'd be nice. All right, thank you very much, everyone. And until next time, we'll see you later.
We will see you later, and we'll see you with 0 from Ryan this week as well.
And a 0 from Josh Kelly in my side.
Yeah.
And until next time.
Bye.
Bye.